I never imagined my life would unravel in a sterile courtroom on a Tuesday morning in October. My name is David, and at 63, I thought I had a firm grasp on my world. For 15 years, I'd been married to Eleanor, and together, we'd built what I believed was an unshakable life with our 7-year-old daughter, Lily. I was a regional sales manager. Eleanor ran a small downtown boutique, and Lily was the absolute light of our lives, or so I thought. The courthouse air hung heavy with the scent of old wood and disinfectant. I sat on a hard wooden chair, my hands clasped, trying to absorb the venomous words Eleanor's lawyer was spewing. Irreconcilable differences, the papers claimed. Yet, as he painted me as a neglectful husband and an absent father, I felt like an imposter, listening to a stranger's life story. Eleanor sat across the aisle with her attorney, a sharp-faced woman in an expensive suit, shuffling papers as if preparing for a criminal trial. Every time I tried to meet Eleanor's gaze, she'd look away, her jaw set in a way I'd never witnessed. This wasn't the woman who'd cuddle beside me on Sunday mornings, or who'd call me at work just to hear my voice. This Eleanor was cold, distant, a stranger wearing my wife's face. Lily sat between us in the gallery, clutching a worn, stuffed rabbit she'd had since she was 3. She should have been in school, but Eleanor had insisted she be present. I couldn't fathom why a 7-year-old needed to witness her parents' marriage crumble, but Eleanor's lawyer had mumbled something about the child's best interests and custody considerations. Every few minutes, Lily would glance at me with those big brown eyes, a confusion mirroring my own. The proceedings felt surreal. Eleanor's lawyer presented a timeline of our marriage I barely recognized. According to him, I'd been emotionally absent for years, prioritizing work over family, leaving Eleanor to raise Lily as a single parent. He cited missed school events, late dinners, weekend work calls. Some of it was true. I had worked hard, perhaps too hard, but the way he twisted it made me sound like a monster who cared nothing for his family. Mr. Peterson, he droned, reading from his notes, regularly worked 60 to 70-hour weeks, was frequently away on business trips, and showed little interest in his daughter's daily activities or emotional needs. Each word was a physical blow. I wanted to up and scream that everything I did was for them, that every extra hour was so Lily could have ballet lessons, and Eleanor her boutique, so we could afford the house in the suburbs with the big backyard where Lily played. But watching Eleanor nod along with every accusation, I began to doubt myself. Maybe I had been absent. Maybe work had consumed me. Maybe I had failed them both without realizing it. The worst part was Eleanor's demeanor. She wasn't crying or emotional, as I would have expected from someone ending a 15-year marriage. Instead, she seemed almost relieved. There was a tension in her shoulders, suggesting nervousness, but not heartbreak. No grief for the end of what we'd built. When she finally looked at me, there was something in her eyes I couldn't identify. Not sadness, not anger, but something calculating. During a brief recess, I tried to approach her in the hallway. "Eleanor, please," I pleaded, keeping my voice low for Lily's sake. "Can we talk about this? I know I haven't been perfect, but we can work on it. Counseling, I can change my work schedule." She cut me off with a shake of her head. "It's too late, David. I've made my decision." Her voice was flat, matter of fact, like discussing the weather. "You'll understand eventually. But why now? What happened?" "Just last month, we were planning a family vacation to Disney World for Lily's birthday." Eleanor glanced around nervously, then leaned closer. "Some things can't be fixed," she whispered. "Some betrayals go too deep." Before I could ask what she meant, her lawyer appeared and guided her away, leaving me more confused than ever. When we returned to the courtroom, I noticed Lily watching her mother with an expression too mature for a 7-year-old. There was something almost analytical in the way she studied Eleanor, like she was trying to solve a puzzle. When Eleanor caught her looking, Lily quickly turned away, focusing on her stuffed rabbit. As Eleanor's lawyer continued his presentation, requesting primary custody of Lily, the house we'd bought 5 years ago, and substantial spousal support, I felt my world shifting. This wasn't just the end of a marriage. It was the systematic dismantling of everything I'd worked for. everything I thought we'd built together. But there was something else, something I couldn't quite place. The way Eleanor kept checking her watch, the nervous glances she shot toward the gallery, her lawyer's almost excessive preparedness, as if they'd been planning this for a very long time. And most disturbing, the way Lily kept looking back and forth between us. Her small face creased with worry about something more than just her parents' divorce. I had no idea that in less than an hour, my 7-year-old daughter would turn that courtroom upside down and reveal a truth so shocking it would change everything I thought I knew about the woman I'd loved and trusted for 15 years. As Eleanor's lawyer droned on about my supposed failures, my mind drifted back over the past few months, searching for missed clues. Sitting there, listening to my life dissected by strangers, I began to remember things that hadn't seemed important at the time, but now felt like pieces of a puzzle I should have solved. It had started about 6 months ago. Eleanor had become subtly distant, which I'd attributed to stress. She'd always been social, chatting on the phone with her sister or friends. But suddenly those conversations became hushed, secretive. When I'd walk into a room, she'd quickly end calls or close her laptop. When I asked, she'd flash that bright smile I'd fallen in love with and say it was just girl talk or boutique drama. I remembered one evening about 3 months ago. I'd come home from a business trip to find Eleanor in the kitchen, her phone pressed to her ear, speaking in a voice so low I could barely make out the words. When she saw me, she immediately straightened up and said loudly, "Oh yes, that fabric order sounds perfect. Have it delivered next week." But something about her tone seemed off, rehearsed, and when she hung up, she seemed flustered in a way that didn't match a simple fabric order. Then there was the new phone. Eleanor had always been meticulous with her things, but about 2 months ago, she'd lost her old phone, claiming it fell into the toilet. She replaced it with a new model, but I noticed she was far more protective of it, always keeping it face down, even in our own home. She'd take it with her everywhere, even to the bathroom, which was unusual. I'd casually asked about it, and she just laughed, saying she was just being careful. And the money. I'd always handled our finances, but about a month ago, I noticed several large, unexplained withdrawals from our joint account. When I asked Eleanor, she'd given vague answers about boutique inventory and unexpected expenses. I trusted her, of course. She ran her own business. It made sense. But now, sitting in court, those memories coalesced into a chilling pattern. Just as Eleanor's lawyer was about to call her to the stand, a small voice cut through the tense silence. "Your Honor." Everyone turned to look at Lily. She stood up from her seat, her stuffed rabbit clutched tightly. "May I show you something that Daddy doesn't know about, Your Honor?" The judge, a kind-faced woman named Judge Morrison, looked surprised but nodded. "Of course, sweetheart. What do you have?" Lily walked slowly to the judge's bench, her small hand holding out a tablet. "It's a video," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Mommy told me to record things for her, so I did." A ripple went through the courtroom. Eleanor's face went pale. Her lawyer shot her a furious glance. "Your Honor, I object," he blurted. "This is highly irregular. A child's testimony, especially in video form, is unreliable and potentially coached." Judge Morrison held up a hand. "Counselor, the child has approached the bench directly. I will allow her to present what she has. We can assess its relevance later. Please proceed, Lily." Lily, with surprising composure, tapped the screen. The video began to play on the large monitor, usually reserved for legal documents. The audio was a bit muffled at first, but then Eleanor's voice filled the room clear as day. "Marcus, I'm telling you, it's perfect. He's so wrapped up in work, he won't suspect a thing. We'll get the house, primary custody, and with his income, the spousal support will be more than enough." My blood ran cold. "Marcus, spousal support?" My eyes darted to Eleanor. She looked like she might collapse. All pretense of the wronged wife finally abandoned. "Mrs. Peterson," the judge said sternly, "I've reviewed several of your daughter's recordings. Would you care to explain the content of these videos?" Eleanor's lawyer whispered something to her, but she shook her head. When she spoke, her voice was barely audible. "Those recordings are taken out of context. Private conversations that a child couldn't possibly understand. I see. So, you're not denying that the voice on the recordings is yours. Silence was answer enough. Judge Osirison turned to Lily. Sweetheart, can you show us the video you mentioned about money and houses? Lily nodded and pulled up another recording. This one was more recent, maybe 2 weeks ago. The audio was crystal clear. Eleanor and this Marcus person were sitting in what I recognized as our dining room, planning out the divorce strategy like they were discussing a business deal. The lawyer says I should ask for spousal support of at least $4.00 a month, Eleanor's voice said on the recording. David makes almost $90,000 a year, so it's reasonable. Plus, I want the house. It's worth about $350,000 now, and we only owe $200,000 on the mortgage. Marcus's voice responded, and hearing him speak in my house made my stomach churn. What about his retirement account? That's trickier, but she thinks we can get half of that too. He's been contributing to it for 20 years, so there's probably close to $200,000 in there. The key is making sure I get primary custody of Lily. Once I have that, everything else falls into place. And you're sure he doesn't suspect anything? Eleanor actually laughed. David, he's completely clueless. He's so buried in work and so trusting that I could probably have an affair right in front of him, and he'd find a way to rationalize it. He still believes we're just going through a rough patch. The casual cruelty in her voice as she discussed dismantling my life was breathtaking. This wasn't the woman I'd fallen in love with. The woman who'd cried tears of joy when Lily was born. The woman who'd told me just last year that I was her best friend and the love of her life. But Lily wasn't done. She had more videos, each one revealing new layers of Eleanor's deception. In one, Eleanor was on the phone with someone discussing how to make me look bad during the custody evaluation. I need to emphasize how he's never available for Lily's emotional needs, Eleanor said. He provides financially, sure, but emotionally he's absent. I'll mention how he missed her school play last month because of a work trip and how he's always on his phone during dinner. What Eleanor didn't mention in that conversation was that the work trip she referenced was mandatory training that I'd tried to reschedule, and that I'd video-called Lily every night to hear about her day. She also didn't mention that I was only on my phone during dinner when she was texting me work-related questions about the boutique's finances. Another recording showed Eleanor coaching Lily on what to say if anyone asked her about her parents. If someone asks you about Daddy, just say that he works a lot and isn't home much, Eleanor's voice instructed. You don't need to say anything bad, just that he's always busy with work. But in the recording, 7-year-old Lily pushed back. But Daddy isn't always working. He plays with me and reads to me and makes pancakes on Saturday mornings. Well, yes, but he misses a lot of things too, doesn't he? Like when he had to work late and missed your dance recital practice. That was only one time, and he came to the real recital and brought flowers. I could hear the frustration in Eleanor's voice. Lily, grown-up relationships are complicated. Daddy and I aren't happy together anymore. And sometimes when people aren't happy, they need to live in different houses. Wouldn't you rather have Mommy be happy? The manipulation was so subtle, so insidious. Eleanor was trying to program our daughter to accept the divorce as inevitable, even desirable, while painting me as the reason for the family's problems. But the most devastating recording came last. It was from just 3 days ago, 3 days before Eleanor filed for divorce. In it, Eleanor was talking to Marcus about their future plans. Once everything is settled and David is out of the picture, we can finally live the life we've been dreaming about, she said. The house is perfect for us, and with his spousal support payments, we'll have plenty of money. Lily will adjust. Kids are resilient, and if David wants to see her, he can have every other weekend. That's generous enough. What if he fights for more custody? Marcus asked. Eleanor's laugh was cold. With what? I have documentation of his neglect. Witnesses who will testify to his absence from family events. Evidence of emotional unavailability. His own work schedule proves he can't provide adequate care for a child. No judge is going to give primary custody to a workaholic father over a devoted mother. The arrogance in her voice was staggering. She'd been planning this for months, maybe years, building a case against me while I worked to support our family, never suspecting that the woman I loved was systematically destroying my reputation and planning to steal my daughter. As the final recording ended, the courtroom was silent, except for the sound of Eleanor crying. But these weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of someone who'd been caught and was facing the consequences of her actions. Judge Morrison's removed her glasses and rubbed her eyes. Mrs. Peterson, in my 30 years on the bench, I have rarely seen such calculated deception in a family court. You've not only betrayed your husband, but you've attempted to manipulate your own child into becoming a pawn in your scheme. This court finds your actions reprehensible. The judge then turned to me, her expression softening. Mr. Peterson, while your work schedule may have been demanding, it's clear your intentions were to provide for your family. And your daughter's courage today has painted a very different picture of your involvement in her life. She paused, then delivered her ruling. Given the overwhelming evidence of Mrs. Peterson's calculated deception, her attempts to alienate the child from her father, and her clear financial motivations, I am ruling as follows. Mr. Peterson will be awarded sole legal and physical custody of Lily. The marital home will be awarded to Mr. Peterson, as it was clearly the target of a fraudulent scheme. Furthermore, due to the egregious nature of Mrs. Peterson's actions, no spousal support will be awarded. The court will also consider a full investigation into potential fraud and perjury charges against Mrs. Peterson and her accomplice, Mr. Marcus Thorne. The gavel struck, a sharp, decisive sound that echoed through the stunned courtroom. Eleanor's lawyer looked utterly defeated. Herself was sobbing uncontrollably, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. Lily, meanwhile, looked up at me, a small, relieved smile on her face. In that moment, I realized the true depth of my daughter's bravery. She had faced down her own mother's lies to protect the truth, to protect us. The aftermath was a whirlwind. Eleanor's lawyer immediately appealed, but the evidence was too damning. Marcus Thorne, it turned out, was a mutual acquaintance, a financial advisor Eleanor had been seeing for months, not just for financial advice, but for a romantic relationship and to orchestrate this elaborate scheme. The investigation uncovered a trail of emails and texts between them, detailing their plan to take everything. Eleanor eventually pleaded guilty to a lesser charge to avoid jail time, but the damage to her reputation and her relationship with Lily was irreparable. In the quiet days that followed, Lily and I began to rebuild. It wasn't easy. There were still moments of sadness for Lily, questions about why her mommy had done what she did. But we talked through everything, openly and honestly. I made sure to be present, truly present, in her life. I adjusted my work schedule, prioritizing school events, dinner conversations, and our Saturday morning pancake tradition. My lawyer, Robert Chen, came by a few weeks later with the final divorce decree. Mr. Peterson, he said, handing me the manila envelope. Everything's official now. We sat in the kitchen while Lily colored at the table. Eleanor's attorney contacted me yesterday. She's formally waiving any future visitation rights. She's also relinquishing any claim to contact with Lily, unless the child specifically requests it when she's older. I felt a mix of sadness and relief. Sadness for Lily, who deserved better from her mother, but relief that we wouldn't have to navigate Eleanor's continued attempts at manipulation. What does this mean practically? I asked. It means you have full legal and physical custody with no restrictions. You can make all decisions about Lily's education, medical care, everything, without needing to consult Eleanor. And if you ever want to move, travel, anything like that, you don't need her permission. After Robert left, I sat across from Lily. Lily, I said gently, you know how Mommy hasn't been coming to visit anymore? She nodded without looking up. Is she not coming back? Probably not, sweetheart. She's decided to live far away and start a new life. That means it's just you and me now. How do you feel about that? Lily set down her crayon and looked at me with those serious brown eyes that sometimes seemed far too wise for her age. "I feel sad that Mommy made bad choices," she said carefully. "But I feel happy that we don't have to worry about secrets anymore, and I feel safe because I know you won't lie to me." Her simple honesty nearly brought me to tears. This little girl had survived months of manipulation and emotional pressure, had found the courage to expose the truth when the adults around her were failing, and had come through it with her integrity intact. "You know what?" I said, reaching across to squeeze her hand. "I think we should celebrate. Just you and me, our little family. Want to go to the park after breakfast and then maybe get ice cream?" Her face lit up with the kind of pure joy that only children can express. "Can we feed the ducks too?" "Absolutely. And tonight, we can have a movie night. You can pick whatever you want to watch." As we finished breakfast and got ready for our day together, I realized something profound had happened over the past 6 months. I'd stopped trying to be the perfect provider, the man who worked endless hours to give his family everything they might want. Instead, I'd become something better: a present father, an honest partner in my daughter's life, someone who prioritized relationship over achievement. The irony wasn't lost on me that Eleanor's betrayal had ultimately freed me to become the father and man I'd always wanted to be, but had been too afraid I wasn't good enough to become. Later that evening, after we'd fed the ducks, played on the playground until Lily was exhausted, and eaten more ice cream than was probably wise, we settled on the couch for our movie night. Lily had chosen an animated film about a young girl who goes on an adventure to save her family. And as we watched together, I couldn't help but think about how life had imitated art. My own daughter had gone on an adventure, a dangerous, difficult journey into adult deceptions and betrayal to save our family. And she'd succeeded in ways that no one could have predicted. As the credits rolled and Lily dozed against my shoulder, I looked around our living room. The space that had once felt tainted by Eleanor's lies now felt clean, honest, peaceful. We'd survived the storm, and what remained was stronger than what had been broken. For the first time in years, I wasn't worried about the future. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Lily and I would face them together with honesty and courage. We'd learned that truth, no matter how difficult, is always stronger than deception. And in the quiet of that Saturday evening, with my brave daughter sleeping safely beside me, I finally understood what real happiness felt like.